sweet. So this is put your mask on first, using an external brain to thrive in a land of information overload. So you always hear on those planes, whether doing that safety thing, put your mask on first before you help anyone else. I recently kind of learned that that is actually true for a lot of things, and one of those is just taking care of the information that you need to deal with on a daily basis. Hey, this works. All right, so quick agenda, what we're gonna go through. We're gonna do some background. I'm gonna offer you all a challenge. I'm going to share some mental models of personal knowledge management, or PKM, because everything needs a 3-letter acronym. And then, of course, get into some techniques for dealing with information, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So I also want to point out that this talk is entirely tool agnostic. It doesn't matter whether you use pen and paper, some really fancy app, or anything in between. One note, I will say Jira a lot of times in here, because saying team project management tool is a lot more words. So if you don't use Jira, I apologize, I don't know what tool you use, but if you can just do that mental mapping in your head of, whatever your team is using for all that project management, that's the main idea there. So I'm Dan Cook. So I am a software engineer, DevOps enthusiast, conference organizer. Come to DevOps Days Chattanooga if you all are in the area. Rock climber and human, and that means I am forgetful and fallible, and so notes have become a really helpful thing for me. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to find me. And so back in July of 22, I got COVID. And that was a really interesting experience for me. I thought I made it through, wasn't going to have it, and I was wrong. And as I was trying to get back to work, my team instituted a rule that I failed to meet multiple times. If I could not remember all 6 digits of the MFA that I needed to log in, I had to take the rest of the day off. That happened a lot. And as I was going through and trying to figure out, how to remember 6 digits, I realized the level of detail that we had broken our stories down to wasn't enough for me. The documentation that we had, a lot of it that I'd written, wasn't enough for me to remember stuff that I had done just a couple weeks before, or even a couple days before. And this was really jarring and hard for me. I had to figure out a new way to go and figure out how to actually be a functioning member of my team. And this led me down the rabbit hole of PKM. And my mantra as I was going through this journey is a quote from Kent Beck that has stayed with me through many years. I'm not a great programmer. I'm just a good programmer with great habits. And so I realized I needed to go and build some great habits around dealing with information and just figuring out how to do this so that I could even begin to be remotely as productive as I was before. And I'd like to think I'm a little bit more productive than I was. So here's my challenge, and just show of hands who's willing to actually do this. Who is willing to, by the end of this week, teach something that they learn in this to another person? Anyone? I see a few hands. I appreciate that. It turns out if you're going to go and teach something, you learn something so much more. I cannot tell you how much extra work I did just to prepare to go and make this presentation. I see some nods. Y'all understand this concept. So use this to your advantage. Go and figure out something in here that you want to go and teach someone else. It'll be way more useful for you. That's the laser pointer. This is the thing. So knowledge is potential power. All the time you hear people say it's power, they're wrong. It's potential power. You need to either use this knowledge or you need to share it to actually begin to realize that power. And so hopefully I'm going to share with you some ways that you can actually start doing more of this sharing and also utilizing the knowledge that you have. Now, learning from other people is really hard. I've always loved this concept of the outer game and the inner game. The outer game is all that stuff that you get to see. You know what people are doing, but you don't understand what people are doing and why they're doing it in there. And another kind of way to look at this is practices and values. You see the practices that people are doing, but you don't know why, and that can make a huge difference behind this. And one of the things that Kent Beck offered in Extreme Programming Explained was this concept of principles being this bridge between values and practices. If you listen to people, they will actually tell you what their values are, but it's not always easy to understand how they're applying them, which makes those practices a little vague. But if you can get some principles, it helps you kind of bridge all this together. And so I want to share with you some values that I've found in personal knowledge management, some principles, and some practices. So the values. Impact. Who here wants to have an impact, whether it's in their company, their family, the world? Anyone? Oh, hey, that's like all of y'all. So we all want to have some kind of impact. It feels really good when we do something like that, and there's that sense of accomplishment. It's great. So that's something that we all value. Creativity. Who enjoys getting to be creative? Like maybe writing code? Anyone actually ever write code in here? I'm amazed that there are hands up. That's great. I was expecting all the hands to go down. And then collaboration. It turns out software engineering, team sport, most of life is actually a team sport. It took me a while to learn that one. So figuring out ways that we can more effectively collaborate with people, very important. And then lastly, sustainability. We're going to have good days and we're going to have bad days. We need to figure out a way that we can do these things sustainably over the long term, because doing stuff great for one day is not nearly enough. So there are some principles to go along with these values. The first one is get it out of your head. Next is make it easy, share early and often. Emergence and serendipity are our friends, and it's not about the tools. I'm at a DevOps conference. Who here can relate to it's not about the tools? All right. So first thing, get it out of your head. I've always loved this quote from David Allard. Your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. Who here has ever had a really great idea, and then when you go to say it, like 30 seconds later, you've utterly forgotten what it is? Yep, yeah. Thank you forever who laughed at that one. I know that pain. Actively working to make sure that you're getting these things out of your head, it'll just help you be more focused. It is so much more confident. You will feel so much more confident when you know, oh, I know what this idea is, and I can just read this and go from there. It'll also make things less overwhelming. If you're having this moment of, oh no, I don't know how we're going to possibly make this deploy work, this is so terrible, and you actually go and write down all the things that you're worried about, you'll probably find that there's less than a dozen. And worst case scenario, you can at least show them to other people and start having a better conversation about it. Just the act of getting things out of your head is so helpful for just all of life, really. Writing makes your thinking so much better. Next, we want to make it easy. We're all going to have bad days. And so we want to just make this very easy for ourselves to start, but also restart, because we're not going to do it consistently. Just no one does that. You just want to make it so that it's easy for you to restart after you've done this. Now, I apologize for the wall of text, but I have loved, someone knows Gall's law. Yeah. I wish more people, especially in project management, actually were familiar with this concept. And it's Gall's law. A complex system that works is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. The inverse proposition also appears to be true. A complex system designed from scratch never works and cannot be made to work. You have to start over, beginning with a working simple system. And I'm trying to find a copy of this book to go and read the rest of his smart stuff, but Systemantics, how systems really work and how they fail, start simple and iterate. It's not just in software, it's in basically everything. And then just another great quote, Tony Robbins, complexity is the enemy of execution. If you go and design this perfect thing, that complex system, you put too much pressure on yourself, too many rules, you're not going to do it, and it's just going to be another thing that you tried and moved on to find something else. So keep it simple. And then share early and often. If you're embarrassed at the level of readiness that you feel with something, that's probably a great time to start getting feedback. Hi, my slides don't even have pictures on them. If you found something interesting, other people will probably find it interesting too. This is a great way to just get feedback, iterate, learn new things. And it's way more fun than just iterating inside and not showing it to anyone. Emergence and serendipity, these are some of my favorite words ever. And knowledge builds and compounds in fun and interesting ways, and we'll get into that a little bit. And it's not all about the tools. We're at a DevOps conference, we kind of know there's more important things than tools. There's things like culture. Paper is a system that we've been using for centuries, and it works really well. Nicholas Luhmann, if you've ever heard of Zettelkasten and all this other nerdy PKM stuff, he wrote about 70 books and nearly 400 scholarly articles. And so the tools don't matter. It doesn't matter if you're using paper, free tools, paid tools, something that you hand rolled, or a hybrid of all the things. What I'm talking about here today are ideas that will work across all of them. And generally, you can just transfer these ideas when you see it from somewhere else to another place. So let's start getting into the practices of PKM. And this is shamelessly stolen from a gentleman by the name of Tiago Forte. It's called code. If you see that nice acrostic there, it feels appropriate for this. But it's capture, organize, distill, and express. So let's start off with capture, or dealing with all the stuff coming at us. Who feels like they have too many things coming at them, Ed? Yeah? Yeah? All right. So there's basically 3 options for stuff to do when you're capturing. Does it feel a little less overwhelming when there's only really 3 places to start? Okay. So the first one of my favorites, it's toss. This is almost as good as deleting lines of code. You don't need it. Just don't deal with it. Way easier after that. Next we have act, and finally we have store. So let's start digging into act. Again, when you're acting, there's only really 3 options. There's the 2-minute rule, scheduling it, and tracking it. So the 2-minute rule, or just do it, around 2 minutes is the point where it takes more effort to track it and do it than to just do it without tracking it. So just do it, and you'll be amazed at how much you can get done in 2 minutes. You'll also be amazed at how much you can't get done in 2 minutes. Yep, I know that laugh. You guys understand. But have fun with it, experiment, you'll learn. Next is scheduling it. Calendars are amazing, they're super great. I knew that I needed to be here at a specific time, so my calendar told me to be here. It's not great for other things, like if I have some code review that I need to do. That's not a really great use of my calendar. That can be done anytime during the course of the day. With a caveat, blocking your calendar can be a form of corporate defense. Anyone need to block their calendar to actually, yeah, I feel your pain. So that's not the greatest use of your calendar. Actually having things where it really matters where you are is where you want your calendar to be. But we all live in the real world. Sometimes you gotta block things off so that you can even do anything else. Track it. Once again, I told you Jira would come up in here. Jira or a to-do list are great. Anything that you're tracking is something that you can delegate, and knowing your next physical action is really helpful. I have a goal of going and getting lunch. Well, what do I need to do that? Do I need to go and look on my phone and find a place nearby? Do I need to walk outside to go and get that? Figuring out what that next action is critical to just letting you move on to the next thing. And if you can take the step of figuring out what is really and truly the next thing I need to do, it'll make anything that you've tracked so much easier to pick up later. Also, regularly clear out your backlog. Cruft is going to accumulate in there. We don't need it. Just get rid of it. Now, I want to take a little sidetrack on delegation. If you're delegating something, you care more about the outcome than how it's actually getting achieved. That's pretty much by definition. So if you can clarify the results that you're looking for and the purpose for why you're trying to get these things, you don't actually have to worry about people picking unacceptable solutions. So check in with the person, but don't micromanage them. Just, hands off as much as possible. Trust them to go and do that. You all want that from your management and your company. Offer that to other people when you're delegating. So storing, the last of these 3 things. There's once again 3 options. There's your vault, a CRM, and Para. So a vault. Some things need to be stored securely. These are things like passwords or passports in the physical world, MFA recovery keys. You could probably think of a whole bunch of things that you don't actually want to be stored where it's generally accessible. You need limited access to this. Find those things, put them in a vault, figure out your system for that. You'll feel much better. Then we've got a contact relationship manager, or CRM. Contacts are just a bit weird to deal with in any kind of note-taking system. There's also like names, addresses, birth dates all eventually become PII of some kind. Are we liable for if our stuff gets hacked? Not yet, but be a good citizen, figure out reasonable ways to take care of that. And also just realistically, if you have a to-do list and it's just like someone's birthday in there, it's weird. So having a dedicated space for tracking people and those relationships really works better in separating that out. Now we're to Para. And so this is again from Tiago Forte, and it's just 4 basic divisions that you can throw most stuff into and just very quickly sort it and roll with it. We've got projects, areas, resources, and archive. So projects, they're amorphous and hard to define. Woo! Getting things done defines it as any project that is, as a project as anything that requires more than one action to complete. that's probably too far down everything as a project. I like to look for projects where there's enough moving parts that I want to be able to centralize them and see them together. Rules of thumb, these shouldn't be things that are lasting more than 90 days. Also, if it's in Jira, do you really need to track it in your own personal system? Sometimes yes, probably not though. Next we have areas. Again, amorphous, but these are the places that you're going to be focusing on for an extended period of time. There's a gray area between these two things. So learning a new language, probably a project. Professional development, probably an area. Getting a certification, maybe both. I don't know. This is something that you get to play with and figure out what works for you. Next up is resources. These are useful resources that don't fit into projects or areas, but you still want to have them around. I keep recipes in mine, manuals, serial numbers. Has anyone ever had like something stolen and you go to the cops and they ask you for the serial number of your stuff? Okay, that's the laughter of pain. Never knew the answer to that before. Now I actually have a system for this. It's great. I feel a little bit better about this. I hope I never use it, but warm blanket feeling. And I also keep things I frequently look up, like Linux and Git commands. I expected more of a laugh out of that one, but okay, fine. Thank you. And then archive. This is the stuff that you don't need anytime soon. I put all my old notes in there, which was just fantastic. I know they're there. It's great. Now, this is a dynamic system. So when a project's done, throw it in your archive. If a project's become a bigger thing, move it into areas, pull something from your archive. None of this is set in stone. None of this is intended to be permanent. Make it so that it works with you. Now, I do have some areas I'd like you to consider adopting. And they're troubleshooting, tracking your wins, a captain's log, and a proactive performance review. So, troubleshooting. Are you Googling or ChatGPTing the solution to a problem? Save that information for your future self and maybe others. And it's not a lot that you need to track. When did it happen? What happened? How'd you fix it? And what tech was involved? You'd be amazed if you start doing this, how quickly you hit the point of, oh wait, I've seen that bug before. Who here's ever backtracked through Google following the purple links, trying to figure out which one was actually the answer? How would you like to never do that again? Okay, enjoy backtracking through that, but this has been a real game changer for me. Your wins. Imposter syndrome is super real. I've had some great audience participation here. Who here has ever felt imposter syndrome? Look around. Also, anyone who doesn't have their hand up is lying. Also, tracking your wins, just a great way to build up your resume and get ready for those annual reviews. And you really want to create your own highlight reel. It apparently takes 6 pieces of positive feedback to balance out 1 piece of negative feedback. Now, who here is a kind of awesome person and gives themselves way more negative feedback to, does not have that ratio right, way more negative feedback than, 6 pieces of negative feedback for everyone? Anyone else in that category? Yeah. Give yourself the options. Make it easier for yourself to actually get that positive feedback. Next up is a captain's log. I have tried daily notes before. Doesn't work so well. There's something magic about just having this on a weekly basis. And I don't know what it is, but tracking it so that you see that whole week, great. Also, stand-up is so much easier. Who here can't remember what they did the next day by the time you need to tell them? Yeah. This has super changed this for me. Also, I haven't tried this. The way that I do it doesn't work as well for sprint-based things. But if you try going and keeping a log for the entire sprint, I would love to hear how that experiment goes for you. Please message me on LinkedIn if you try that. I think it's a really cool idea, and I'll eventually get around to trying it. Proactive performance reviews. Who here hates having to figure out what to put in your performance review? Okay, yeah. You get the same questions every year. You know it's going to happen once or twice. Just grade yourself on that regularly throughout the course of the year. It's a lot easier. All right. We've just captured a whole bunch of stuff, and now what do we do with it? And is para really enough? I'm a software engineer. The answer is it depends. Yeah. Our goal is to make finding and adding information easy. It's not just retrieval, and it's not just addition. We need to be able to do both. And so to make our notes more searchable, add the date to everything. This is one of the greatest pieces of advice I got out of the book Getting Things Done, and it applies physically and digitally. It's great. Also, linking or tagging things to at least one other concept, super helpful for just that jog of, oh wait, I remember this is related to this, way easier to find stuff. And you'll notice when I was talking about troubleshooting, when did it happen? That's the date. What tech was involved? Really great concept to go and figure out what you're going to associate these things to. Oh, this was a problem with AWS. This was a problem with my Mac. Having that basic searching thing, so much easier, and when you hear someone else having that problem, you can very quickly just refer back to your notes and help them out. The next is maps of content. And this is a really neat idea, and it's kind of why the internet works and is so awesome. It's links. And you can build out your own custom index of all these cool ideas that connect so that you can go to this one place and start finding interesting things. And this is tool agnostic. It doesn't matter if this is a piece of paper where you're writing an index listing the books that you're referring to, or you have some kind of digital system to go and do it. Having these maps to guide you where you're going to discover all kinds of cool new things and make it so much easier to find what you're looking for. Which brings us to distill, or discovering all these treasures that we've captured. In the book Atomic Habits, James Clear tells the story of a photography class that got graded on either the quality of their photos or the quantity of their photos. It turns out the people who had the quantity of photos actually had the best quality of photos. There's something about having a whole bunch of stuff in there and sorting through it and finding the good stuff. You need a whole lot of ideas, not just a few good ideas. So edit your notes, also known as iterate. We talk all the time about having to iterate inside of work. It applies everywhere else. So is this note still relevant? Is there a better way to do this? Do I know a better way to describe this process? Play with your notes, update them as you go, and find better answers to these things. And as you'll do this, you'll come up with these atomic notes. And these are ideas that stand kind of on their own. Whenever you read a book, you're going to hear this author talk about these concepts that they've put their name to because the marketing department told them to. You can have those for yourself. There's also all these other common ones out there. And just figure out what are these things that you have that you know about that could be your own Wikipedia articles. Which brings us to a really cool thing. Anyone familiar with the magic of getting to philosophy on Wikipedia? All right. It turns out if you click on the first non-parenthesized, non-italicized link within any article inside of the English version of Wikipedia, over 90% of them will lead to the philosophy page eventually. No one planned this. This isn't actually a hard and fast rule. It's fluctuated over time based on various things. But it's this neat emergent property that has come from there. And as you start building out your own notes, you'll be able to find cool stuff like this. You can also use something called the Zettelkasten Compass. Is you have these atomic notes that all stand on their own. Answer these 4 questions. Where does it come from? What is it similar to? What competes with it? And where can it lead? As you kind of think about and figure these things out and connect all your notes together, you're going to make new connections and discover new things. And this can be addictively fun. And all of a sudden, you'll just connect things that you never would have expected to connect before. And it's just really fun. So this brings us to expressing or sharing all these great ideas that we've had. And this is really and truly sharing the fruits of our labor. We all said that we wanted to have impact. This is how we start to have an impact. So teach what you've discovered. Teach something from this presentation. Give presentations at work or at conferences. As a conference organizer, we always need more speakers. Please consider this your personal invitation to start speaking at conferences. Answer stuff on Stack Overflow or find other ways like writing a blog to give back. And if nothing else, start updating tickets in Jira or your team wiki. So to quickly review, the values of PKM that I've identified. Impact, creativity, collaboration, and sustainability. We want to make a difference. We want to have fun being creative. We need to work with other people, and we need to do it for the long haul. Principles behind this that help us get to these practices that work is getting stuff out of our head, making it easy so we can keep on doing it, sharing these ideas early and often, enjoying emergence and serendipity, and remembering it's not about the tools. There's more important things than just having the perfect tool. It's really about the ideas. And our practices: code, capture, organize, distill, and express. Get all that information in, figure out what you're going to do with it, find the true nuggets inside of there, and share it with people. And I know you all want the flow chart. What to do with new information? It's pretty simple. Input, toss, act, or store. A couple of options inside of there. I'll let you all grab your pictures there. Yep. All right. Good? Sweet. So I want to leave you with another Kent Beck quote. There's a theme there if you haven't noticed it. No matter the circumstances, you can always improve. You can always start improving with yourself. You can always start improving today. And that's from the introduction to the second edition of Extreme Programming Explained. And I hope you take that motto with you. So here's some resources that have helped me through this journey. Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte, Getting Things Done by David Allen, Extreme Programming Explained by Kent Beck, if I haven't mentioned that enough times. Time of Your Life by Tony Robbins, linkingyourthinking.com. Really long video name, but where I got that Zettelkasten compass idea from. And if you're interested, connect with me. And does anyone have any questions?
Voice chat.
Have you ever used Obsidian for note-taking?
So the question is, have you ever taken Obsidian? Again, I will reiterate, it doesn't matter what tool you use. Yes, I absolutely use Obsidian every day.
It seems to fit a lot of your criteria. It's basically creating your own visually linked Wikipedia.
The linking functionality is so awesome. I do not want to get up here and say, hey, you should try Obsidian, but he said, hey, maybe you should try Obsidian. And yeah, I totally use Obsidian every day. I've tried paper systems, I've tried various other things. It really doesn't matter what the tool is, it's what you will use that matters. But yeah, Obsidian's kind of awesome.
Hey, I had the same question, but also, like, could you maybe go into a little bit more depth about how you organize your personal knowledge?
So the question is, how do I actually organize my personal knowledge? And I started out with Para. Para was the first thing that really worked for me that I could actually use for a bit. But I've slowly evolved past it because I have Obsidian, which lets me link to things. So I have a couple of home notes that have links to important places for me to go to, and I can drill down into a few things from there. But I can search, which is the main thing that I want out of there. And so everything kind of, Para for me has kind of turned into projects, which is dealing with ongoing stuff that I have, and then everything else. And so it's kind of projects and archive, and I don't care because I know the date that something happened on, or I can kind of get to other notes around that time. And I have these other concepts, and so I can search for it. So as much as I can, I try to actually not even worry about it. But that took me a while to hit that point of, oh, wait a second, I don't need folders for everything. But that's how it's worked out for me. Whatever system works for you and gets you taking notes and referencing it is really the right system. Does that help at all?
Sweet. Anybody else? All right.
Questions?
Oh, no, you don't. Big round of applause for Dan Cook.
Thank you.